average out the View hosts, among the dumbest people on television.
Sunny's dumb. Certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out. It's like if you had an idea for a premise and it was totally baked and half baked and you went on stage with it and it's nothing
Just
there.
go for it. Yeah,
there's nothing there.
I mean, you're married, Tom, you're married. Your husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to some nefarious stuff. But let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures, and look at her track record. How many times does she have to go on in the past 2 months and look at the camera and do a legal apology for all the stuff that she said on the show?
It started like any other morning. Coffee in hand, scrolling through the news feed, nothing out of the ordinary, until one name made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Sunny Hostin. But this time, it wasn't about her fiery debates on the RICO View or her long-winded lectures about morality, inequality, and systemic failures. No, this time the spotlight wasn't even on her. It was on her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, and the headlines surrounding him were nothing short of explosive. Dr. Hostin, a respected orthopedic surgeon, wasn't trending for saving lives or groundbreaking work in medicine. Instead, his name was now tied to something darker: insurance fraud, kickbacks, and a sprawling RICO lawsuit involving nearly 180 defendants. That's not a simple case. That's a full-blown scandal.
With mostly everything that's been said, I mean, we know that, only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
The kind of scandal that feels less like real life and more like the script of a Netflix drama. Think about it. The RICO Act, short for Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, was created decades ago to take down organized crime families, mob bosses, and dangerous street gangs.
But I want a citizen that has a policy. I mean, I'm not saying that Joe Rogan should be removed from Spotify. He's got 11 million listeners. He's got a $100 million, contract as of 2020. But I do think as the podcast platform, you have to have some sort of guidelines. How about a disclaimer on his podcast that says, this is misinformation? How about removing some of the podcasts that disseminate this misinformation?
They have.
And that's
Now, instead of mobsters in leather jackets, the ones in the hot seat are doctors in white coats. And right in the middle of this storm sits Dr. Hostin, accused of taking kickbacks, performing unnecessary surgeries, and billing insurance companies for procedures that may never have even happened. Imagine that for a second. Patients trusting their doctor, only to discover later that they were just pawns in a high-stakes financial game. Surgeries that may not have been needed. Insurance companies footing the bill, money changing hands, in back rooms like a poker game gone wrong. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. This isn't just about one man. It's about a network of doctors, surgeons, and medical practices accused of manipulating the healthcare system for profit. If these allegations hold up, this could become one of the largest medical fraud scandals in New York's history. Bigger than mafia takedowns, bigger than anything the state has seen before. And the irony? For years, Sunny Hostin has sat on The View lecturing America about morality, ethics, and accountability, pointing fingers at everyone else. Yet now, her own household is being dragged into one of the most scandalous—
It's always the people that always do the pointing, and it always comes back to them, all right? So when you said, this is the largest RICO case ever filed in the state of New York. You guys wrap that around your brain. That's bigger than the mafia case. Like the mafia one was number one. This one takes it over. So he was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange for the kickbacks.
Legal cases of the decade. The hypocrisy writes itself, but it doesn't stop there. While the lawsuit has the potential to destroy reputations and careers, the silence from Sunny herself has been deafening. Normally, she tackles controversy head-on. She debates, she argues, she never shies away. Yet this time, nothing. Absolute silence. Which raises the question, what is she hiding? Because this story isn't just about a lawsuit, it's about betrayal. It's about public image colliding with private secrets. And it's about what happened.
According to a new lawsuit obtained by Page Six, the orthopedic surgeon was one of 200 defendants named in one of the biggest racketeer influence and corrupt organization cases ever filed in New York. Emmanuel was accused of federal insurance fraud and, quote, getting kickbacks by performing surgery and billing a company that insured taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers.
Happens when someone who built their career preaching morality suddenly has to answer for the shadows in their own home. But here's the real twist. This scandal isn't just shaking Sunny Hostin's family, it's pulling in major names, big corporations, and even media giants. And one of the loudest voices calling her out? None other than podcast king Joe Rogan. And trust me, he didn't hold back. When the news broke, the internet was quick to react. But no one's reaction cut deeper or went more viral than Joe Rogan. Known for his unfiltered takes, Rogan didn't hesitate to tear into Sunny Hostin, and The View with the kind of blunt honesty that his millions of listeners crave. If you average out the IQ of The View hosts, you might still struggle to hit triple digits, he joked on his podcast, sparking laughter from his audience. But it wasn't just a throwaway jab. Rogan went,
Saw you on The View.
Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack my character in that way.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies-infested henhouse.
further accusing the panel, especially Sunny, of blatant hypocrisy. He reminded his listeners that Sunny has spent years criticizing others, slamming public figures for their flaws, and positioning herself as a moral compass on national television. Yet here she was, sitting silent while her husband faced accusations of orchestrating one of the largest RICO fraud cases in New York's history. To Rogan, the hypocrisy was staggering, and it didn't stop with insults. Rogan framed this scandal as a lesson in accountability. It's always the people pointing fingers the loudest who end up hiding something themselves, he warned. His words spread like wildfire across social media, shared and clipped into viral TikToks, igniting even more outrage. But while Rogan's roasting grabbed attention, the legal details unfolding in court.
Her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. Okay. Now let's read this. Rob, is this a video?
Well, I have this. I'll show you this about.
Let me just read this and I'll come to you. So, Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow. Hostin's attorney Daniel Twites denies the allegations, calling the lawsuit a meritless attempt by a near-bankrupt insurance carrier to intimidate doctors and restrict healthcare benefits. The case involves claims that Hostin performs unnecessary surgeries on patients after minor accidents without exploring less invasive treatments, with American Transit citing New York's 1974 no-fault law as contributing to widespread insurance fraud.
Were even more shocking. The lawsuit alleges that Dr. Hostin and his associates received financial kickbacks for recommending unnecessary surgeries, particularly arthroscopic procedures, those minimally invasive joint operations that usually sound harmless. At first glance, these surgeries appeared legitimate, but prosecutors claim some of them were completely unnecessary, performed not to heal patients but to line pockets with insurance payouts. Imagine walking into a hospital trusting your doctor's advice, only to later discover that the scalpel wasn't for your health, it was for someone else's paycheck. That's not just unethical, that's betrayal at its core. And here's where the tension escalates even further. The lawsuit specifically names the American Transit Insurance Company, ATIC, as the plaintiff. ATIC alleges they've been duped out of millions spent on procedures that never should have happened. Their claim paints Dr. Hostin not as a healer, but as a man who exploited accident victims, taxi drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, turning their injuries into opportunities for profit. But wait, the other side of this story is just as messy. Dr. Hostin's legal team has fired back, branding Attic as the real villain. His attorney dismissed the entire lawsuit as a meritless attempt by a near-bankrupt insurance company to recoup its own losses. According to them, this isn't about justice. It's about a desperate corporation pointing fingers to cover its own financial collapse. So who's telling the truth here? Is Dr. Hostin really part of a fraudulent empire of surgeons exploiting the system? Or is Attic, a company accused of shady dealings itself, weaponizing the courts to save face? The answer isn't clear. But what is clear is that this scandal has grown bigger than just one doctor or one insurance company. It's spiraling into a battle over trust in the entire healthcare system. And just when you think it couldn't get more dramatic, wait until you hear how this case is being compared to the mafia. If you thought this was just another lawsuit, think again. Legal experts have already called it one of the largest RICO cases ever filed in New York. Let that sink in. Bigger than mob crackdowns. Bigger than mafia busts that once dominated the headlines. The same legal weapon once used to take down mob bosses is now being wielded against doctors, medical practices, and hospitals. The comparison is chilling. Imagine the spectacle of organized crime trials from decades ago. The FBI storming into smoky backrooms, stacks of cash, shady deals in the shadows. Now picture that same level of accusation, except this time, the stage is a sterile hospital ward. White coats instead of leather jackets, surgical scalpels instead of brass knuckles, and right in the middle of it all, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin. Prosecutors argue that he and others weren't just guilty of poor medical judgment, but of systematically exploiting patients for profit, insurance fraud, kickbacks, surgeries that may never have been necessary. To the plaintiffs, this wasn't medicine. It was a heist. A sophisticated operation draining millions from the healthcare system, one unnecessary procedure at a time. The alleged victims? Not just wealthy elites, but working-class drivers, taxi drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers. Everyday people who trusted their doctors when injuries struck, only to allegedly become pawns in a financial scam. The emotional weight of that accusation alone makes this case feel more than criminal. It feels personal. But here's the twist. While prosecutors paint Dr. Hostin as a key player in a grand conspiracy, his defense team insists this entire narrative is a smokescreen. They argue that Attic, the insurance company at the heart of the case, has its own skeletons. This is the same company accused of underpaying doctors, denying claims, and using loopholes to dodge responsibility. Could this lawsuit be nothing more than a desperate ploy to save themselves from collapse? And that's where the courtroom drama becomes a battle of narratives. On one side, prosecutors describing a web of deceit so big it makes a soap opera. Look tame. On the other, a defense team pointing fingers back at corporate greed, insisting their client is just collateral damage in a much bigger war. Meanwhile, Sunny Hostin, once so vocal about accountability, remains eerily silent. Her silence has become deafening, fueling speculation. Is she protecting her family, waiting for the storm to pass? Or does she know that the more she speaks, the deeper the scandal will drag her name into the mud? But here's the part that keeps people glued. If the allegations are true, this isn't just about fraud. It's about betrayal at the highest level of trust, between doctor and patient. When healthcare becomes a hustle, when healing turns into scheming, it doesn't just break laws, it breaks faith. And as the courtroom gears up for what promises to be a long, ugly fight, one question looms larger than all the rest. What happens if Dr. Hostin is found guilty? Because if the answer is yes, the fallout won't just destroy reputations, it could shake the very foundation of America's already fragile healthcare system. As the case drags on, the courtroom battles are only growing nastier. Prosecutors describe Dr. Emmanuel Hostin as a man who put profit before patients, allegedly turning operating rooms into cash machines. They paint a chilling picture of unnecessary procedures, fraudulent billing, and financial kickbacks disguised as medical care. To them, this isn't just criminal. It's the ultimate betrayal of the oath every doctor swears to uphold. But the defense refuses to back down. Dr. Hostin's lawyer, Daniel Thwaites, insists the lawsuit is a desperate stunt by the American transit insurance company, Attic, a corporation on the verge of collapse, looking for someone else to blame. In his words, this is a meritless attempt by a near-bankrupt insurer to recoup its own losses. If true, that would mean Attic is weaponizing the courts, using the public's anger to distract from their own financial failures. So who's the real villain here? A doctor accused of carving up patients for money? Or a corporate giant accused of destroying lives to save itself? That's the puzzle no one can quite solve. And that uncertainty is why the nation can't stop watching. But while the lawyers argue and the headlines pile up, one voice remains silent. Sunny Hostin. The same Sunny who built her career on The View by challenging others, calling out hypocrisy, and positioning herself as a moral compass for America. Yet when the scandal hit her own home, her words dried up. No fiery debates, no impassioned monologues, just silence. And that silence is deafening. Fans are divided. Some say she's protecting her family, waiting until the courts decide. Others believe she's distancing herself, preserving her image at all costs. And a growing number suspect her lawyers advised her to keep quiet, fearing that one wrong sentence could drag her deeper into the scandal. Whatever the reason, her silence is speaking louder than any defense she could offer. Meanwhile, the implications of this case stretch far beyond the Hostins. If the allegations hold, it could expose a network of corruption within healthcare, proving that patient trust has been little more than a fragile illusion. If the defense is right, it could reveal how corporate greed uses lawsuits as smokescreens, punishing doctors to mask systemic failures. Either way, the outcome will reshape the conversation around trust, morality, and power in America's healthcare system. And as the gavel prepares to fall, the stakes couldn't be higher. If Dr. Hostin is found guilty, the fallout won't just destroy reputations. It could shatter careers, dismantle practices, and leave Sunny's public image in ruins. But if he walks free, it will raise questions about whether America's healthcare industry itself is built on lies, loopholes, and legal games. One thing is certain, this scandal is far from over. More names could drop, more secrets could spill, and the silence hanging over Sunny Hostin's chair on The View may not last forever, because sooner or later, the truth always comes out. So, stay tuned, because the next twist in this story might just be the one that changes everything. If you don't want to miss it, hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle up. This is only the beginning.